All right, everybody, Kenny Smith, Total Force Holdings. Today we're going to talk about selecting the knife that you're going to carry. All right, now for this purpose, we're going to basically take a look at some of my collection. We're going to talk about some of the merits of different types of knives for a carry blade. And for starters, we're going to start with the common locking folder. This is a Benchmade 615 Mini Ruckus, okay? I've had this knife for a long time. It's now unfortunately discontinued. I like it quite a bit. So what are the attributes of this, the most common type of knife people are going to carry? First off, you're going to have some form of pocket clip. All right, now this one's got a 2-position pocket clip. My Spyderco Waved Enduro, which is in the house, that has a 4-position pocket clip. So what does that mean? You can carry the blade tip down, all right, which some, as Kelly McCann, seem to prefer, or you can carry it tip up, which I prefer on a 4-position clip. All right, and it's ambidextrous, right? With this one, you've got a choice of tip up right hand, tip up left hand. All right, and of course you could go set it up for edge out, which would be cutting edge facing behind you in the pocket, edge out draw, or again cutting edge facing in front of you for a forward grip, for a edge out draw, right? So something to think about, right? Which, how do you want to carry it? Depends on how you're trained to deploy it. So for the forward grip draw, the method that I showed in a video previously, all right, or that's actually in a video on my TikTok channel now that I think about it. It's not on here on YouTube. All right, you can go to the link tree in the description box and find that, or at least my TikTok, right? That comes out here, and it doesn't matter if you're tip up or tip down. All right, I just did that backwards, but still kind of early in the morning for me. All right, that method will work either way. All right, you have a locking mechanism, in this case an axis lock. All right, I like the axis lock. It's quite strong. You can deploy the blade either by pulling the axis lock with your thumb, and as you flick your wrist, letting it go, or with the thumb stud that way. You could have other mechanisms as well. You could have some form of back rocker lock like Cold Steel's Triad, or the lock on the Spyderco Enduro. You could have some form of frame lock or liner lock. All right, there's all kinds of locking mechanisms out there. But this is an exemplar of a manual folder. All right, what does this do? Well, first off, there's a bajillion of these floating around. All right, you can't go anywhere, at least in my area, without seeing one of these pocket clips on just about every man in particular's pants pocket. All right, so the upside of this is because there's so many of them, you can probably get away with it. All right, in a lot of places. Some places with the no weapon signs are only concerned about firearms and big knives and don't really pay much attention to the small folder. But that's not necessarily the case everywhere. So the folder's biggest upside is its ubiquity. Plus, it's not big. I mean, this one's heavy. This is beefy for a folder. I'm not gonna lie about that. But compared to something like, say, I don't know, another survival utility type knife, right? That can be a fighter. Yeah, it ain't so beefy no more. All right. But that folder, that can serve you quite well. Not uncommon to find them with these finger grooves in here, which is a good thing. You want some form of jimping, which is what these grooves are called, on the spine, so you can get good support on it if you want to use a Filipino type grip. All right, downside of these finger grooves is, first off, even though you wouldn't necessarily want to, it can make a Fairbairn grip problematic on some blades, not on this one. All right, Fairbairn grip works. All right, hammer grip works. Saber grip works. Filipino grip works. It feels okay. I mean, it's not great, but it feels okay. In a reverse grip, if you're running it reverse grip edge out, you've even got jimping back here on this one. So if you like reverse grip stuff, that might not be a bad thing. But if you want to run it reverse grip edge in, all right, which this is where a lot of folders start to fail, because that pocket clip will end up digging in your hand. All right, if you have it in the other side, it still works. You just don't have any jimping on this one. So if you can find jimping on both sides of that, then you probably got a pretty solid little folder there. So the ubiquitous locking folding knife is probably a good first start. And a lot of people are convinced that a manual folder, even an assisted opening folder, because of that thumb stud, takes too long. Enter the automatic. Some states, automatics are legal to have in your pocket. Some states, they have to be visible. Mine being one of the latter. All right. This is a Benchmade Infidel, which is also, we're also going to kind of use to talk about a couple different things here. All right. So with the automatic, what happens is this part, notice how if I just barely push it, maybe it locks, maybe it don't. With the automatic, if I push the button, it goes. Now there are some automatics, most of them, that are going to open out the side. So if I hit a button, pull the axis lock, whatever, it would do this all on its own, just by pushing the button. In that case, the whatever launch method, whether it be auto axis or a push button or something like that, pull on that or push on that and then fold the blade down under spring tension. This is a double action automatic. It's out the front. Instead of coming out the side, it comes straight out the front. All right, so what double action means is I push the activation switch, blade comes out, pull the activation switch, blade comes in. So with a side opening automatic, you are limited to a single edge blade, which is fine, right? Especially if that is also pulling double duty as a utility type of blade. All right, but with an out the front, you can carry a true dagger. Okay, which, I mean, let's be real. The single edge is better for utility. The dagger, double edge dagger in particular, is much better for killing. I'm just gonna call it what it is. It's better for killing. So if you want to carry two folders, there is a lot of merit to a single edged fighter or single edge folder, forward grip edge out, and following in the rear hand with a double edged dagger and a fairbairn grip. So you can get into your Filipino knife work, and along the way you've got a piston, right? Or that cuts on either side. So there is absolutely some merit to carrying two folders. And if you want to carry a single edge and a double edge, there's absolutely merit to that as well. Couple things here. Autos, much more dependent on maintenance than a manual folder, right? Like this Infidel, if I don't hit it with some oil every couple of weeks, it starts to get sluggish. All right, doesn't take much. If I put too much oil in it, it starts to get sluggish 2 days later. All right, so it is maintenance dependent. Any automatic will be, okay? Next thing, this has a very tight switch that takes a lot of conscious effort to deploy that blade. I had a Benchmade auto striker when I was younger. Thank you, taxpayer. But that thing, it didn't take next to nothing to get it deployed. I ruined the pocket line into several good pair of pants and cut myself a few times because I moved or whatever and bumped that button. It snapped open and cut its way through the pocket line and then cut my thigh. So things like that, you don't necessarily want that. You don't want it so easy to deploy that it deploys accidentally. You do want some good resistance there. All right, and again, I must stress, make sure you know your local laws before you start dropping any form of automatic knife in your pocket. Most states consider them a switchblade. Well, they are a switchblade, and they legally frown upon them. However, if it's legal in your area, a double action out the front automatic with a double edge blade, got a lot going for it. So now we're going to move on to fixed blades. Now, I actually did used to carry this ESEE Laser Strike. I put the belt clip back on it so I could carry it on my war belt. All right, and then I touched up the Coyote Tan spray paint. So this is an example of like a utility type knife. If you're going out in the bush or whatever, this makes a lot of sense, okay? Can you fight with it? Oh, absolutely you can fight with it. But its primary purpose is going to be as a utility knife. So everything that you would use a knife in the bush for, right? You can see this one is not babied. Then this makes a lot of sense. All right. This one's set up survival oriented. It's got a bow drill divot, fire starting stuff in the grip. Right. Can I fight with it? Oh, absolutely. I've got good jimping right there again. Good choil so I can come up on the blade. It acts almost like a handguard there. Okay, yeah, everything here, I can dig it. I can fight with it. And the way I carried this blade is I put a Raven concealment soft loop right there, and I carried it right here, inside the waistband. Not the most comfortable thing in the world. I did it to prove a point to a few people. Throwing that out there. Having said that, this is big to carry concealed on your body, but if you can pull it off legally, a hell of a tool. Continuing. A fingering type dagger. This one's on the big side, the Scallywag Guardian. My Patreon account's already got a video up on how to use stuff like this and do all kinds of good work with it. That'll be coming out here on YouTube later. All right, these are quite popular. All right, not necessarily this one. This, like I said, Scallywag Guardian. It's quite large, but the small fingering type dagger, these are very popular. All right, there's a common misconception that they are only point based because most of them, the double edge variety, only have 40-degree following edges to maintain the integrity of the point. Then people say, well, you can't cut with them. Well, that's bullshit. Yeah, you can. You just have to dig the point in first and then rip out. Now, this Scallywag Guardian does have serrations on it. This thing will cut like crazy, but I understand not all your fingering daggers will. So use it point based and understand that if you hit something with a 40-degree following edge, that aluminum, that steel, whatever, is significantly harder than human skin. Get it going forward. It is made to a point. It will cut. It's just not going to cut as deep as something like, say, that ESEE Laser Strike we just had. All right, this one will because of the serration. This will go straight to bone. There are other finger ring daggers that are single edge utility blades that does not apply to. All right, they'll cut like crazy. There are double edge finger ring daggers that are true daggers and are sharpened all the way down. Again, they will cut like crazy. So it depends on the geometry of your edge. But nonetheless, these finger ring type daggers, very, very, very popular. All right, for good reason. All right, most of them are a hell of a lot smaller than this. You can carry them in a lot of places. I actually used to keep a Benchmade sock pea on the narrow hair ties, right? And I put it up over here. That way my belt ran under it, like the tail of my belt. And I could catch it with either hand, get into it in a reverse grip. And it was so light and small, you didn't really notice it was there. All right, but yeah, that's one of those things. The finger ring dagger, very solid investment. And honestly, for someone new to the idea of carrying a fixed blade knife, that is probably what I would recommend. This one's going to cover two families: the punch dagger and the non-metallic blade. This is a G10 puncher from Sheriff of Baghdad Tactical. All right, how many of us want to be armed for one reason or another and have to go into a place that has a metal detector, even though it's not illegal for us to carry there? It's just against policy. All right, as long as you're smart about how you conceal it, this thing right here will walk right through that metal detector. I know, I've done it several times, repeatedly. All right, so non-metallic blades, understand, they don't typically cut as well. All right, this one's G10, which is admittedly not the best material to make a knife out of, but it is completely non-metallic with the exception of the 2 screws on the sheath. Although that's easy to get to work around. You just have to be smart about it. All right, this I actually keep fairly well sharpened, but I'm under no illusions. If I cut somebody with this, then it's going to need to be resharpened like right after. All right, it's primarily going to be point based, but that's okay because it's a push dagger and that's what they're for. So with a push dagger, there's a lot of argument over how to use these things. All right, most will want to do something like this, and to me that's crazy. First off, you see that angle? I want to hit with these 2 knuckles. I don't want to hit with these 2 knuckles. I want to hit with these 2. That angle is off. If I put it between these 2 fingers right here, now when I throw that jab out there, all right, exactly the knuckles I want to hit are getting led by something sharp. All right, when I throw that hook, same thing. I'll throw that uppercut. All right, if you want to use this as a push dagger is intended, it's boxing with a blade sticking out of your hand. It needs to go between your first 2 fingers. Now, I know Shivworks makes a push dagger, which due to the orientation of the grip, requires that, okay? Which I think more should be made that way unless they're trying to be really small like this one. In which case, that's on you, the end user, to make sure that when you grab it, it is the social finger and the trigger finger that get at that blade. And then you just deploy it and you just box with it. All right? So, how do you deploy this one? Very simple. Slap it, wrap it, grab it. Not hard. All right, how do you deploy that finger ring dagger? Slap it, stick it, pull it. Not hard. You only get a middle finger in there, that's fine, it'll still work. All right, if you can get a middle finger in there, then you can get a couple more in there. All right, at least on this one. You only get these 2, again, it's not desirable, but it's still workable. All right, what if you only get your pinky in there? Flip it. Okay, if I can only get my pinky in there, flip it. Use it in a forward grip. All right, now, Depending on where you're carrying this is going to follow about the same line as drawing a pistol. Which if you're carrying appendix, right? If you're carrying on the hip, very simple. Same thing. Very simple. Caveman stuff. What about your automatic? Same thing as a normal pop folder. Alright, it's in here and I don't have a pocket or a pocket clip. I'm in, grab a pocket clip, pinch it, roll over, let's shoot a marble again. Alright, what if you want to deploy this in a reverse grip, Flip it. Alright, it's one thing the manual folder has on the auto. What about the big survival type blade? If we're talking about deploying knives and choosing one. Same thing, Just like drawing your pistol. It's on your hip. Put it back here right about behind where my pistol would be on my war belt. Right? Not a very hard concept at all here. Go to it, just like I would my pistol. Master grip. Come up, thumb, pectoral index. Push straight out the target. This isn't rocket science, okay? And finally, for the last one we're going to talk about, and this is a blade that I highly recommend. Look, if it's legal for you to carry a fixed blade where you are, the clinch pick is where it's at. Now, there are companies that make sheaths to carry it vertical, all right, but this was originally designed to be worn at an angle about like this. In the illingual crease, basically the joint of your hip. How do you deploy it? You smack it, wrap it, and pull it. You don't even have to pull your hand away. It is entirely possible. Let me back up so you can see it better. Here, smack it, wrap it, and pull your hip away. And get that blade back up and into the fight. All right, there is a double-edged version of this now, which I am going to have to end up getting. Right? But this is only meant to be used with the edge in. Okay? Either in a forward grip with the edge in, or in a reverse grip with the edge in. So again, sitting on your hip like this. Slap it, wrap it, snatch it. For that reverse grip, slap it, wrap it, snatch it. All right, and from there, with a forward grip. Okay. Interesting little blade design. All right, this thing right here is, I have said previously, I found this on the web, about this blade by G10 Puncher. This is the fastest way off the bottom. Well, that was before I started messing with one of these. Either way, the point is a small fixed blade knife is the fastest way off the bottom when you end up on the ground. I know some people learn jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I've been training in jiu-jitsu for quite a while. And I promise, this thing right here will make passing someone's mount so much easier. So much easier. It's not hard to pass someone's mount if you start the game by puncturing their lung. And say, well, that would never be justifiable. See, that's where you're wrong, stud, because at least in my state, if you put someone on the ground where they're in imminent fear of you cracking their head against the pavement, that's considered an assault with a deadly weapon as soon as you mount them while they're on the ground, because the ground is a deadly weapon. So, yeah, I hate to say it, bud, but if you assault me with a deadly weapon, the keywords are deadly weapon. There's not going to be much said if you get poked in the process. All right. Deployment, like I said, very, very simple. This does not weigh much. I mean, it's cuts like crazy for its size. So, hope you all enjoyed that. That's just a few of the knives I have out there. Kind of selecting a fighting knife and deploying a fighting knife, right? Kind of one of those things. They kind of go hand in hand. So, what are your criteria? Showed you a few different types. For most people, a conventional locking folder is going to serve their needs pretty well. All right. If you are more in a combative-oriented kind of setup, then maybe you should go with an auto. All right. Or maybe you're in an environment where you have to wear heavy gloves quite a bit, and you don't have the manual dexterity to be hitting things like thumb studs and all that. Excuse me. But in which case now the auto starts to look like it makes more sense. If you are in a place where You don't necessarily have to wear winter gloves a lot, although that Guardian does work pretty well with them. The small fingering type daggers tend to work pretty well in any environment where you don't have to wear gloves. All right, if you have to wear a lot of gloves, some of the finger rings can be pretty tight. I haven't tried my Scallywag aluminum dagger with heavy gloves. I know the Guardian will work with it, but judging the finger ring, it should. I know my Benchmade Sock P dagger that I used to have would not. All right. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you're in an environment where you have to wear a glove, be careful about which finger ring dagger you select if you choose to go that way. The punch dagger, as long as you use it right, simple. If you don't have much knife fighting training, but you've been boxing for a long time, punch dagger is probably a pretty good choice. Punch dagger or push dagger, whichever one you want to call it. Large survival knife. Look, if you're not going in and out of the woods a lot, that's probably not going to be the one for you. That's like, okay, leave it in your bag so you've got it as a survival tool, but putting that on your belt, unless you're working outside all the time and in the woods, it's just going to attract more attention than you want, and as a result, that would be just kind of stupid. And then you've got things like the clinch pick, which, if it's legal to carry a fixed blade, that would be my go-to. All right, small, works very well, but you have to be really okay and comfortable with edge-end knife work. If you're not comfortable with edge-end knife work and you have no desire to get comfortable with it, the clinch pick is not for you, all right, as much as I like it. So which one would I choose? Well, that's the one of those I carry every day, my clinch pick, as my fighting knife. So why don't I carry that mini ruckus? Well, it's discontinued, thus it's worth quite a bit of money now. So I don't want to lose it or damage it or anything like that. So that's why I don't carry it. It's not a mechanical fault with the knife. It is Benchmade's fault, but that's because they discontinued it. Nothing to do with their work or anything like that. Just they discontinued it. They made it worth more money, and now it makes no sense to want to carry it out in public. Just because I don't want to lose it or break it or anything like that. Because if I have it with me, I'll use it. And if I use it, I'm liable to break it. So for me, my fighter is going to be my clinch pick. And my utility knife is my old timer, like, that I've had since I was a little kid. So that's the one for me. If I am going into a place where, let's just say I need to be more discreet, I'll carry my punch dagger because it's G10 and non-metallic. And due to the individual running the metal detector, like all human beings have a desire to achieve normalcy, a bias towards normalcy, I can get around the two little bolts up here and still keep that to the point where I can walk right through. But this right here, if you've got someone that's got combatives experience but not much knife experience, this is the kind of thing that I recommend. Maybe not necessarily a non-metallic one, but a punch dagger would go for there. If you're, when you talk about your tack gear and stuff like that, if you're only going to have one blade on there, get one that can fight but is heavy on the survival and bushcraft task, right? Don't matter how good your fighting knife is. If you can't build a fire, build shelter, dress an animal, build traps, do fieldcraft with it, you're not going to live long in the field, all right, unless you have a true field knife. So, but that's like kind of reserved for war belt only or in your survival bag. And the finger ring daggers, to me, are a good start to carrying a fixed blade. Why? Stick your finger in it, pull it out, shove the point in there. You're just shooting hammer fist. I don't have to teach you a bunch of funky strikes. I could teach you a leading vertical hammer fist, a leading horizontal hammer fist, right, an inward and an outward, high and low, right, vertical. We're good. Work angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I only need to teach you 8 strikes with a finger ring dagger to make you quite effective with it. All right, other than that, I teach you stick finger in the ring, snatch up, strike out. Not a hard concept. All right, so if you're new to the knife world and you want to get into carrying a fixed blade, all right, the finger ring dagger is hard to beat. If you want utility and fighting, a finger ring dagger enter near the appendix position and a conventional folder clip to your dominant hand pocket for utility tasks. It's a pretty hard to beat combination. So just stuff to think about. There's a bajillion knives out there, a bajillion different styles. Take a look at different things. Those are just my criteria, right? Like what I want, what I think each family is good for. And that's not even getting into different blade shapes and stuff like that, with the exception of single edge and double edge. So hopefully that's a good primer for y'all. Y'all stay frosty, stay dangerous. We'll catch y'all next time.